Is, is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If any time of the session I'm not audible, you guys can ping me, okay? Uh, uh, so should we start? Just trying to join, just a second. So let me start for our first tutorial session. So I guess you all might have taken Professor Sengupta's classes of the week. So assuming that you guys attended her lectures, I will be giving you a tutorial session accordingly. So myself, Kumari Priya, I am a research scholar at IIT Roorkee in the Department of Polymer and Process Engineering, and I'll be taking the tutorial classes for the course Petroleum Technology taught by Professor Sonali Singh. Just a second. Just give me a minute. Just okay. Then let me first introduce to the you to the subject. In this subject, we will be talking about the for today's tutorial, we will be firstly focusing about how the petroleum is formed under earth, I mean in the earth, and how we can extract it, what different machinery is required for its extraction, and how do we determine that on what locations we can extract crude oil, and how and further how to process it uh, to get the final product to use in our daily life, that we will be talking about in our further classes. So starting with the first slide, which is the history of petroleum. So basically, am I audible, guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Okay, okay. So talking about the history of petroleum, how it is formed. So basically, what happens in the deep down in the ocean beds when these marine organisms like marine animals, when they die, they settle down on the that seabed, and over the years, millions of years, the sand and different kind of plant material and sand, it gets settled over it, and layer by layer that mud settles over these dead organisms, and due to this high pressure exerted by this mud over these dead marine animals, due to this high pressure, these marine animals over millions of years, they turn into oily materials. So these they turn into oily materials. So basically, petroleum, it is a mixture of gaseous, liquid, and solid hydrocarbons and its various derivatives. And these, due to this pressure and the bacteria present down there, it gets decomposed and convert into oil-like material, which we extract from down the earth in the form of crude oil. So as we can see here, that dead organism, they bury into the mud over millions of years, and due to pressure, it convert into oily materials, which we extract as crude oil, and we have to further process it using different methods, and to get the final products which we use in our daily lives. So what happens is these petroleum, this crude oil, it gets stored in different rocks beneath the beneath the oil. Deep down in the oceans. So basically, it forms into a rock, and it gets due to high pressure, as we can see it, due to high pressure. Due to high pressure, it gets migrated from the rock in which it is formed to other rock. So the rock in which it is formed, it is a compact rock, and it gets transferred into other rock, which is basically called the reservoir rock. So reservoir rock, it stores this crude oil. So this reservoir rock, basically, what we it should consist of some properties to store this crude oil. So basic properties required is it should have good porosity as well as permeability. So what is basically porosity and permeability? Porosity is basically it should consist of numerous pores. Whereas permeability is different than porosity. Permeability is basically the connectivity of these pores. As we can see in this one, it is porous. There are pores are present here, but these pores are not interconnected. So if oil even stores in these pores, they cannot be, it cannot mean we cannot extract it properly. Whereas in this section, we can see these are the pore areas. These are this is the rock area. These are the pore areas, but these pore areas are all interconnected. So it is highly porous also and permeable also. But this rock, it is porous, but not that much permeable. So it is a bit difficult to a bit difficult to extract crude oil from this type of rock rather than this type. So our requirement is this type of porous as well as permeable rock. So basically, reservoir rocks, some examples of reservoir rocks are dolomite, limestone, sandstone, etc. And there are many other forms. So for the petroleum to store, a rock must for a rock to be reservoir rock, it should be porous as well as permeable. There is another kind of rock which is required, that is a cap rock. So basically, when the crude oil is stored in this reservoir rock, cap rock is also required. Basically, it forms a kind of cap over this reservoir rock. For what reason it is required? For the reason so that the stored crude oil, it does not pass on to it does not pass on to the neighboring rocks. So basically, to store it in a definite place, into a definite rock, there should be a cap. Basically, it is like if you store water in a bottle. So if you don't close it, if you don't use the cap, it will evaporate. You won't be having enough water. So for that reason, there is a cap rock required which act as a seal to prevent the escape of oil and gas. Basically, there is not only oil present, but gas is also present. So if there is no cap rock, then the gas and oil will escape. So for that reason, cap rock properties is that it should not be porous. If it is porous, then obviously gas can escape out. So for that reason, the requirement for a rock to be a cap rock, to be a good cap rock, is that it should be less porous compared to the reservoir pore. And some examples of cap rock are clay, shales, anhydrite, salts, and gypsum. Basically, here we are seeing what is a basic structure of how the oil is stored into a pore in a reservoir rock. So basically, this is the this is a structure of a pore. Suppose we are considering that our core is in a cylindrical shape. So how our oil will be stored? We will be seeing here. So the oil is there is not only oil is present, as I told, gas is also present below the earth. Then there is brine water. All the time we can see that brine water is present every time underground. So along with oil, there is brine water present, then oil and gas. So they in a pore, it is stored on the depending on the density. So as we know that water is denser than oil. So firstly, in the lower zone, brine water will be present. Then oil will be present, and gas being the least denser, it is present on the upper region of a pore. So basically, the fluids are distributed in the following order. Upper region, where pores are mainly filled by gas, as we can see here, basically depending on its density. Then it is filled by oil and then by water. The gas, and not only this, it is not possible, as you all know, that in ideal condition, we can say that, okay, here gas is present, here oil is present, and here water is present. But there is no such distinct demarcation ever possible. There will always be a mixing of gas with here at this junction, gas with oil, and oil with gas, and at this junction, the mixing of oil with water and water with oil is always is mean it will always be happening. So we cannot say that that there is a some kind of boundary that it will not mix. Along with the presence of oil in here, there will be distinct mixing of gas molecules with oil and oil molecules with gas, and here also water molecules with oil and oil molecules with gas will be mixing. So basically, first we saw what kind of rocks are required for the storage of our crude oil. So now different kind of traps are there, where these formation of these rocks in different forms is present in deep down the earth. We cannot say that in below the earth due to high pressure, or there is always moving of the rocks happening. So we cannot say that always that it will be a sheet like structure. You cannot say like, here this is our reservoir rock, and here we put a cap, and it's a, like a small heat box or a straight box. That never happens down the earth. So due to all the pressure and all, what happens is, when different rocks form due to the pressure, it forms different shapes. So if a sedimentary rock experience push from the lateral side, mean from suppose, for example, if you take a paper and you apply pressure from the lateral sides, what happens? Wrinkling happens. So that kind of thing happens with the rocks also. It wrinkles in up and down like this form. When suppose pressure is applied from these lateral sides on a rock, so wrinkling of the rocks take place and they form this kind of structure. So this portion is the upfold and this portion is the downfold. So the upfold is called the anticline and the downfold is called the syncline. So these rocks also form these anticline and syncline structures, and as we can see in this is basically a upfold, which is the anticline structure. This is the cap rock. This is our reservoir rock, which is porous rock. So basically, our crude oil is stored in this area, and this is a different rock which is non-porous. So obviously, as it is non-porous, then so this crude oil will not pass on to the lower portion. There are different types of faults also. That there is a possibility of different kind of faults which can take place in these rocks, as I have told that different actions takes place due to high temperature and pressure below the earth. So some kind of fault traps are also formed. There are basically three types of fault traps. Well, the first one is normal fault, then reverse fault, and thrust fault. So what happens is, when one side, if suppose we consider there are two rocks coming into contact, as we can see, suppose this is the first rock and this is the second rock. They're coming in contact. So when one side, suppose one rock, this suppose second side, we can see the second rock, it moves down due to gravity. Then the upper rock comes into contact it, and then the second rock moves down due to gravity. Then this kind of structure forms here. This fault takes place, which is a normal fault. So as we can see, when one side or one section of the reservoir rock slides down by gravity, this second reservoir rock, it slides down by gravity against the next section, against this section one. Then we get a fault, which is the normal fault, and we can expect the reserve of petroleum at this fault. Here we can expect this is suppose our reservoir rock. So though fault takes place, but still the storage of crude oil takes place in these faults also. The next one is the reverse fault. In reverse fault, in this the next what happens is, when one part of the rock goes up the above part of another part of the rock, as we can see, suppose this rock is going above this rock, then this reverse fault takes place. And when this happens at a lower angle, it is the reverse fault and reverse fault. And if it happens at a larger angle, then it is the thrust fault. Now coming, so basically here we can form a gist of all what we have discussed till now, that what is the basic requirement for a petroleum accumulation. So the first basic requirement is a organic rich source rock. So source rock is basically where exactly crude oil was formed. So suppose the dead organism started burying down the down on the seabed, and it formed a rock, and these dead organisms. Just a second, someone is trying to join. Firstly, what happens is when there this petroleum crude oil is forming, that rock is called the source rock. And then, as I told you, due to high pressure, this crude oil is transferred from the source rock to the reservoir rock. So the first requirement is a source rock. A source rock is required. Then a porous permeable reservoir rock. A reservoir rock is required, which should be both porous as well as permeable, so that it could retain the petroleum within it, I mean the crude oil within it. So another requirement is the reservoir rock. Then a impermeable cap rock is required to seal and retain the petroleum so that it does not escape. And then a configuration of rock, mean then there should be a mean a configuration, basically a formation of a rock is required, such as anticline, syncline, or some kind of fault is required, so that we can store so that maximum amount of crude oil can be stored. So these are basic requirements of for petroleum accumulation in a rock. So now coming on to the next thing, what we will discuss is that how do we explore that, on what locations under the earth there is we can explore, obviously we cannot like go and dig anywhere and we can say that okay, we will dig deep enough and we will get crude oil. Such thing doesn't happen. There are definite areas on geographically on this earth where you will get the crude oil. So you cannot go and without any proper exploration and without any proper proper theoretical and experimental data, you cannot go and dig a well. So for that, different techniques are there to determine that what at what location on the earth we need to dig a oil well for extracting of the crude oil. So there are these three methods which are generally used for the determination of exact locations on the earth crust as to where we can dig a well for proper extraction of commercial level extraction of crude oil. Moreover, there is one more thing that you cannot, that not only the location where crude oil is present is to be taken into account, the amount of crude oil present is also to be is all should also be taken into account. So it is not like that you get with all the data you find that there is presence of crude oil uh, uh, at some place, but it is not in very large amount. So as we know, okay, since digging of a oil well, it is a very expensive and very tedious and expensive procedure. So before deciding to dig on a well, it is very important to know that the amount of crude oil that we will be getting is worth. It is you can get commercial profits out of it. So that is also a factor, and all these, after considering all these factors only, we can confirm and we can decide that an oil well can be dug. So the three techniques required for the exploration of underground for exploration of underground crude oil presence is the first one is magnetic method, then the gravity method, and then seismic reflection method. So in magnetic method, what happens is magnetometer is taken. Uh, it is basically depending on the variation of magnetism under the Earth's crust. As we know that uh, different locations on Earth have different magnetic field. So where crude oil is present deep below the Earth's surface, there also magnetic field is different, and at other places where there is no crude oil, there also magnetic field is different. So by using a magnetometer, we extract magnetic field data at different locations on Earth's surface, and by studying that data, we can determine by analyzing and studying that data, we can determine whether a oil field oil where whether the presence of crude oil is present in a area on Earth's surface or not. Then the second method is gravity method. Basically, it is similar to the magnetic method. Here, the difference of gravitational pull at different locations is taken into account. So, using gravimeter, we measure the pull of gravity at different locations on Earth surface, and then using this using this data, by analyzing this data, we can also determine whether presence of crude oil is present at a definite location or not. And then the third method is seismic reflection method. In this, what happens is we seismic waves are used to determine the change in property of the subsurface rocks. So what happens is we provide sound waves from the Earth's surface, either by explosion or by some kind of thrust. We provide sound waves. Sound waves below. We send sound waves deep inside the Earth, and after that, when these sound waves they are if petroleum is present, due to the density difference, they send back signal. These sound waves are reflected back, and these reflected back signals are recorded into a detector, and different readings are taken for different locations. And using this seismic reflection data, we can also determine whether the presence of crude oil is there or not. So, taking this seismic reflection method further, seismographic data logging is there. So, seismograph measures the shock waves from explosions. As I have told, that the shock waves are given either from explosion or by some kind of thrust down below the earth. We send shock waves, and a series of detectors are placed in a predetermined pattern surrounding the location of this explosion. And these reflected waves, which are basically called the acoustic waves, they are recorded in these detectors. These waves which are sent to the ground surface by denser rock formation below. Denser rock, basically, these are the our reservoir rock. When these signals this gets when they are incident on the reservoir rock, they are sent back these reflected waves. They are recorded into the detector, and using this seismic data, seismographic data, we can determine whether the presence of that crude oil is there or not. So basically, it is this kind of arrangement is there. So the formation depth is determined by measuring the time elapsed between the explosion and the depth of that. Obviously, there will be difference in the signal if there is some denser rock present, if there is oil present. So the exact location can be determined by the depth of. We can get the depth from how much depth that reflected signal is coming. We can measure that, and by that measurement, we can determine the exact location of our crude oil. Of our reservoir rock, basically. Another concept of in this seismic reflection method is concept of common depth point. So what happens is we arrange different. We don't here we use multiple, so that shock wave sources, as we can see here, that in this we have taken two sources, and we take we send shock waves, and the reflected waves, they are they are recorded here using different this is the detector, which is basically a geophone. These reflected waves are recorded using this detector, and we get numerous data for a single point. So we can say that this single point is giving two different data. So we are getting different data for a single point to better analyze that. If obviously if there are uh, that repeatability of data is there, then we can get a much better confirmation of our of if the crude oil is present or not. Just a second. Basically, we have several sound generating sources and several geophones. Geophones are basically the detectors. These are the detectors. So sound waves generated by source S1 traveling by the path S1 to R2 are hitting at the same point. So we can see this sound wave from the S1, it is also hitting at this point, and sound wave from the S2 is also hitting at this point. So this is called the common depth point, and the power of the common depth method is called the multiplicity of data. Basically, we are getting numerous data for a single point. So obviously the process gives a multiplicity of data, and the degree of multiplicity is called CDP fold. So the more basically it is saying that more the repeatability of data, more strong the data at that point is. Okay. Now coming on to the introduction to a drilling operation. So basically, after determining whether crude oil is present at a definite location on the Earth's surface or not, this further next step is the drilling operation. So drilling oil and gas well, it is a complex and very expensive operation. As I told, there is huge machinery required in the drilling of a well. So it is a very expensive operation. Large capital investment is required. So drilling requires details of the well design. That's why very clear and concise detail of the well design, well construction plan, and that confirmation of whether the commercial level crude oil is present or not is required. So decision to drill a well only be made after exhaustive investigation of the petroleum prospect of the well. And gas and oil reserves are found in the wide variety of geographical locations onshore and offshore. Okay, they are present both below the deep in the ocean, and on outside ocean as well. So the depth of drilling, it may vary from 3,000 to 30,000 feet. It is not like very deep oceans. Very deep drilling is only required for extracting good quality crude or some like that. It is not like that. So the depth of drilling, it may vary from 3,000 to 30,000 feet. Basically, this is a basic arrangement for drilling. We will not go deep into the machinery, which is not a part of this syllabus. So it is just shown for your knowledge. So the well drilled into the reservoir may be totally. It is so different kind of wells can be dug. It can be vertical, it can be horizontal, and it can also be inclined at different angles. So the basic, so different type of wells we can see. As we can see this, it is multi-well. It is multi-well platform drilling. Basically, multi-well is like from the single source, different wells. A second, someone is trying to join. So this first one is the multi-well platform drilling. So it is basically that from a single location, numerous wells are dug. As we can see, three wells. This one, two, three wells are dug from the same location. One is horizontal and other two are inclined. Okay, so this kind of arrangement can also be done for basically our main aim is the complete exhaustion of our source of crude oil from our reservoir rock. So basically, what happens is either we dug a vertical well, but if we can see, suppose here we can see that some amount of oil is present here also. So instead of taking this whole machinery and installing it again here or installing a different similar machinery at some at a little distance, which is obviously not feasible. As I told, the machinery is very expensive. So what they do is, using a single machinery, they dug different wells. So to exhaust the oil present in this area and in this area, they dug a inclined well, and to exhaust this area, they dug a vertical well. The second one is the inaccessible locations. As we can see, suppose there is a reserve present in here, but we can see suppose there is some locality buildings and some city. Suppose a reserve is present below a city, so we cannot obviously dug in between the city. Obviously, we cannot dug a well, or we cannot install all these machinery in mid city. So what is done? They install this digging that drilling operation outside the city, and they dig a inclined well. And if suppose this second one, in this also we can see, suppose there is this let's take example of this arrangement only. Suppose they have exhausted this well completely, this reserve completely, but there is a reserve at somewhat, you can say, like 10 to 20 kilometers apart. So why to take this very expensive arrangement to, why to shift this arrangement, or to install the similar very expensive arrangement 20 kilometers? They dig a directional well. They will dig a directional well 24 to 20 kilometers apart. And the third one is so basically for inaccessible locations, the drilling is called the inclined or directional drilling. And the fourth type is the horizontal well drilling. Basically, here we can see this is, though it is vertical in direction, but for complete exhaustion of the crude oil from the reservoir rock, we dug a horizontal well. So basically, there is no such restriction to you have to dig only vertical well, or you cannot go for different directions. For complete exhaustion of the crude oil, you can dig your well in any direction. So this is basically a drilling operation. Most of the oils are drilled by rotary method. Basically, what happens is a drilling bit is present, which keeps on rotating and keeps on cutting the rocks and the soil below the earth surface. And we will talk about this in coming slides. So basically, the drilling operation takes place in a rotary method, and a drilling rig is used to drill the well. So basic components of drilling rig are power plant. Power plant is required obviously for rotation, for rotary method to work. A motor is required. So for the rotation, a power plant is the requirement. Then a rotary machinery is required. Which is rotary machinery. Then a drilling column is required. Basically this kind of column is required, in which basically that drilling bit goes down that, and it keeps on drilling and cutting the rocks and soil. And then a mud circulation system, obviously during the cutting and the cutting of the rocks and the drilling operation, huge amount of mud comes out, which needs to be taken out of, for the smooth drilling of the well. So that mud circulation system is required, and some other auxiliary machinery is also required. We will not go deep into the machinery. As I told, it is not the part of the syllabus. I mean, it is not a part of the subject. Basically, drilling operation, as I told, a drilling bit is there. Suppose this is the column, then there is a drilling stem is there, and at the tip of this drilling stem, there is this drilling bit. This kind of arrangement is there, which this drilling bit keeps on moving and keeps on cutting the rocks and mud, cutting the rocks and sand structure of the earth below. So basically, two main types of drilling bit. An abrasive bit is revolved at the end of the drilling stem. So this is the drilling stem, and this is the drilling bit, and it keeps on moving. So two types of drilling bits are used. Roller cone drilling bit. The cutting section of this bit is provided by cones, which have either it is either made of the steel. It has steel teeth of tungsten carbide inserts. And other is the polycrystalline diamond compact bit. These bits are use small disc of synthetic diamonds to provide cutting surface. So basically, two different types of drilling bits are mainly used. One of the steel and other of the diamond. Basically, as we know, that diamond is very hard material, so diamond is used here. So for the easy cutting of the rocks, this drilling bit is required. Coming on to the drilling operation, completing a well and preparing for production of oil involves insertion of a casing. So what happens is, after suppose you you have done the drilling, you have done dug the well, then obviously it is completely filled with mud and sand. So what happens is, we need to insert a casing so that the sand and mud from the nearby areas, it does not enter into our well, and there is no such disturbance from the external areas into our well. So casing provides a permanent wall to the borehole, prevents cave-in, block off unwanted water, oil and gas from another formations, provides a return passage for the mud stream, and provides control of the well during production. So as I mean, we keep on digging the well, and we keep on uh, uh, I mean keep on inserting a casing, basically a kind of pipe, a very thick pipe. We keep on inserting it so that the sand and clay from the nearby area does not keep on hampering our digging, and all the that rock material and all the sand material, it also can be taken out easily, which mean obviously you are cutting the rocks and sand, it is also going down in that well itself. So to easily take that out, take easily taking out of that debris, this casing also helps in that. There is another component which is a very crucial component, which is the drilling mud. Drilling mud or drilling fluid is a crucial component in the rotary drilling process. A circulating system is used to circulate drilling fluid down to the drilling stem. So there is a pump is used which circulates this drilling fluid to the drilling stem or drilling string, and up to the drilling stem to borehole at annulus. So basically, there is this borehole, and in that drill stem is there. Suppose, let me show. This is the casing we have used, and this is our drill stem. And on the tip, we have our drill bit. So that this drilling mud is poured here in this annular area. It is poured, Drilling mud, it is a mixture of water, clay, and weighing material. It is basically a mixture of water, clay, basically bentonite clay, then weighing material that is barite and some chemicals. Mud is mixed and it is mixed and conditioned in a mud pit and then circulated, and then it is circulated into the downhole by large pumps. Mud pits are a series of large steel tanks fitted with agitators. Vigorous mixing of this drilling mud is done with agitators to maintain the density of this drilling fluid in the suspension. So it should be basically a fluid form with proper density. So what are the basic uses of this? Why this drilling mud is required? We will talk about it now. So basic functions is when this cutting action takes place, this digging of the well is going on. Huge amount of heat is generated while this drill bit cuts the rocks. The mean it gets heated. So by this temperature, by this heating, there can be I mean, disturbances can be created and change in the pressure and properties of our crude oil can also take place. So therefore, this drilling mud is poured into into the well to cool and lubricate the drilling bit and the drilling string to remove drilled solid and all the solid which suppose this you are cutting these rocks and all this is going below. We have to take them out. Otherwise, drilling the well is of no use. So to take out these chunks of these rocks and all the solid and mud, this drilling mud helps in that also. As it is it is not very like it's not watery. It's a suspension kind of liquid. It's suspension kind of fluid. So when it is poured, this solid it also gets suspended along with this drilling mud, and as this is completely done, and this drilling mud, it is circulated using a pump system. So, these debris, this rock chunks, and this solid that sand, it can also come out along with the drilling mud to form a gel to support drill cuttings and any weighing material. So, as suppose if during the drilling operation, sometimes when the drilling operation is halted, uh, it is not like if it is halted, we cannot all the operations that are taking place, all the weighing material and drill cuttings, all these rock chunks, they need to stay in static position. So to prevent them from falling down, this drilling mud it forms a gel. It forms a gel like structure to keep them to keep all the drill cuttings and weighing materials in position, and to control the subsurface pressure also. As I told that if the temperature increases during the cutting by the drilling bit, then the subsurface pressure will also change and other changes will also take place, so that it also controls subsurface pressure, and to prevent squeezing or caving of formation and plaster the side of the boreholes, and it also prevents the I mean collapsing of our well. Coming on to different methods of oil recovery. So different oil recovery drives are used. Basically, the rate at which oil, gas, and water in the reservoir core space can flow to, we can extract. So different factors are to be taken into account. So basically, what are the factors that affects the extraction of crude oil? It is basically the pressure difference between the reservoir and the well, permeability of the reservoir rock. As I told that if the rock is not if our reservoir rock is not permeable enough, it will be difficult to extract the crude oil. Then the reservoir thickness is also very important, and viscosity of the oil, which is also very important. If our crude oil is very viscous, then obviously very thick oil, it is very difficult to extract very thick oil. So there are several means that serve to drive the petroleum fluid from the formation through the well to the surface. So there are different means which are used for the extraction of the crude oil from the well to the surface. We will be talking about all of that. There are three methods, I mean, three different methods of extraction of crude oil from the well to the surface. So the first one is natural drive, that is basically using different natural methods, natural forces only to extract the oil from the reservoir rock. Then the second, it consists of three different types. We will be talking about it: dissolved gas drive, then the gas cap drive, and the water drive. Then the second one is improved oil recovery. It is basically the secondary oil recovery method where when all the natural forces are exhausted and no more extraction of the oil using these natural forces can be done, then we move towards the improved oil recovery, which is basically the secondary oil recovery method, and it involves different methods like digging horizontal well, multilateral well, as we talked about, then extended reach well. We will be talking about them all. And then the third one is the enhanced oil recovery, which is the tertiary method of extraction of oil from the well. When all the uh, above methods are exhausted and no more oil can be extracted using the above all methods, then we come on to this enhanced oil recovery method. And one more point to be noted is that in both these methods, no change in the physicochemical property of the crude oil takes place. But in this method, as we use different kind of gases, then chemicals, and then different, I mean, use of heat is involved. So we can here say that the change in the physicochemical properties also takes place sometimes during the enhanced oil recovery method. Just a minute. Coming on to the natural drive or primary recovery method. So in primary recovery method, what happens is the petroleum is propelled out of the reservoir through the well by one of the three methods. So what happens is when we dig the oil, there is huge pressure below. The pressure of the well is larger than, is more than the, uh, uh, just a second. Hmm. The pressure of the well is the pressure below the earth near the reservoir rock is very high. So what happens is when we dig the, uh, when we try to extract the oil, what happens is the firstly when uh, oil is when well that uh, just a second, there is some problem with my. Just a second. Give me 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes. Mm. So in natural drive or primary recovery method, what happens is there is a huge, the pressure is very high deep down the near this reservoir rock, and when the well is dug, when pressure mean when pressure when we try to extract oil from the then first of all, when the pressure is released, when the pressure is lowered, then this at first what happens, as soon as the pressure is lowered, the as I told that in the reservoir rock there is a mixture of water, oil, and gas. So initially what happens is these dissolved gases which are present in the oil, they Someone is trying to join. Hello.
Ma'am, your screen is invisible.
Okay, okay. Just a second. Just a second. Just a second. There is some issue with the network. Just give me a minute. Mm. Can you guys give me 5 minutes? There is some problem with my laptop. I need to change it. Just give me 5 minutes. Hello. Is my screen now visible? Hello. Mr. Amit Kumar, please mute your mic. Hello. Mr. Amit Kumar. Hello. 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 Now my screen, is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, your screen is.
Mr. Amit Kumar, please mute your mic. There is okay. Sorry for the interruption. Okay. So what happens is, so during the natural drive, as I have told you that below that there is huge pressure down the earth near our reservoir rock. So when the well is dug, and initially when we try to extract the crude oil, then the pressure is released, And as I told that in the reservoir rock, crude oil is not simply, it is not oil. It is a mixture of water, oil, and gas. So as soon as the pressure is released, what will happen? These dissolved gases, which are dissolved into the oil, they comes out. These dissolved gases, they are instantly released in the form of gas bubbles, and so this some amount of oil in the form of this volatile matter, it gets released. And so what amount? It is basically 5 to 25% of oil is released in the form of dissolved gas drive. Basically, what gases are dissolved in the crude oil, it gets released as soon as the pressure is released by digging of the oil. Then the second one is the gas cap drive, which is basically as more pressure is when lowers down, and now the pressure of this of our reservoir and the well, it is almost similar. So now all the gas which is this dissolved gas, it is basically the mean very less amount of gas which is mean under pressure, it is dissolved into the oil. It gets released as soon as the pressure is lowered by digging of the well, but still more amount of gas is present inside the oil. So when pressure is lowered down more by the digging of the well, then what happens is all this gas which is present in the mean in this oil, it comes onto the surface and forms a cap. It basically forms kind of gas cap, and it gets released from the oil. So basically 10 to 35% of crude oil is released using by this method, which is basically the gas cap drive. And the last one is the water drive. It is basically what happens is when further water drive is basically this water below. As we know that there is brine water also present deep below the earth. This water below this, as the pressure is now the pressure uh, of the well is low. Now the pressure of this reserve of our that reservoir of our reserve is lower, and due to which this water, brine water, it pushes the oil along with it pushes the oil, and with the pressure from this water, it gets, I mean, this oil gets extracted. So basically, it is the water drive. This water provides a driving force for the extraction of the oil in the water drive, and 20 to 50% of the crude oil, it gets extracted from the water drive. So basically, these are the natural forces. No extra energy needs to be provided for the extraction of oil in these natural drive processes or the primary recovery method. So now coming on to the secondary recovery method, which is the improved oil recovery method. So in this, we studied previously also different kind of wells are dug. So basically, improved oil recovery is mostly the oil gets extracted from this method, but still now we cannot recover the oil using natural forces. Now we need to provide some energy, or we need to find some alternate methods for the extraction. So this is the secondary method of extraction of the crude oil. So what happens in this here, as I have told, either you dig a horizontal well. Mean simplest form is digging of the vertical well. Firstly, the simplest thing we do is dig a vertical well and we try to extract. But now, if it is not possible by digging the vertical well, and there is oil reserves present in the remotest areas also, and we need to extract all these oil which is present in the remote areas. Suppose this is a oil reserve. If we dig a vertical well, we can extract from this region, but this area is remote in the comparison, in the term of this well. So to extract the oil from this area, we will dig a horizontal well. So horizontal well can be drawn. Then multilateral walls, like like different wells in different directions. You can also draw, dig different wells as well. Then extended reach well mean, uh, if suppose your well is in this area. Suppose this is a reservoir, and your well, it is extracting oil from this area. but oil is present here also. So you can also dig a well covering the whole circumference of this well. I'm trying to say is you can dig different different wells in different directions for the extraction of for the extraction of the oil which is still present in the remotest area. So secondary method involves the digging of different directional wells. And another method, one more method in the secondary extraction is water or gas injection. And water or gas injection is what we try to inject water from one well. Suppose this is our reservoir and this is our well, which we have dug. We will dig one more well in parallel to our primary well. We will also dig a secondary well in parallel to it. We will pass water from this well and oil will come out from this well by the pressure of the water which we are injecting here. So not only water, we can also inject gas also. Either we inject water and oil will come with pressure from the oil from the water from the first well, or either we inject gas. Gas is mostly injected in the case of when there is formation of some kind of gas cap. So basically, this also we can do by injecting gas or water into the well. Now coming on to the uh, third method, which is the enhanced oil recovery. Oil recovery. It is basically the tertiary method of oil recovery. In this, as I told, that there is a change of physicochemical properties of the crude oil can also take place. Either we use So what happens in this? Two different targets are there. Mean now it is not like very large amount of crude oil is left, but still there is some amount of crude oil is left. But and we need to extract that also. So you then in that case we use this tertiary method of oil recovery. So it involves in this external energy is required. We provide external energy, creating fundamental changes to the. As I told, it creates changes into the physicochemical properties of the system. So action of oil droplets. If some there are some oil droplets are still trapped in the pores of the reservoir rock, then we can use this method. Or if some kind of oil is trapped into the unswept areas. Unswept areas is that well is not able to reach that area. Suppose very remote area it is very curved and in some very curved area it is and you cannot dig a well up to that area, then we can use these enhanced oil recovery methods. So in first one, what we do is by using some kind of gas, as we can see here, this by using gas, we pass a gas by displacement displacement and mass transfer by a gas. Either we pass a gas through the through the pores, and that gas either it forces the oil droplets out of the pore, or it will either it will do the mass transfer and bring that get absorbed in the oil, and then it can be easily extracted out with the gas. Or either by using some kind of surfactant. If we introduce some kind of surfactant, then the interfacial tension will increase, which will be making it very easy for the oil droplets to extract. Then another method is by increasing the water viscosity by introducing some kind of foam or polymer into the unswept areas. It will increase the it will make it easier for the oil trapped in the unswept areas to come out, or either by reducing the crude oil viscosity by introducing some kind of steam or CO2. As we know, if the viscosity will be decreased, then it will be easier to take out the oil or to extract the oil. And then in situ combustion, which is the by introducing some heat, which will make the oil thinner, and it will be easier for us to extract the oil. Now coming to the typical production profile, are we running out of time? Okay, we have. Okay. Now this is the typical production profile. What happens is, first step is the discovery of the well. We will determine the area which will be containing the crude oil, and then After that, the startup will start, and firstly, this is the build, which is basically the investment period when all the drilling and exploration is done. So here, this is the production. This is the build-up area, and then slowly, as the build-up is starting, then the production rate is increasing. And after some time, when all the well building and everything is over, then this development is constant for some time. Matlab, when the well is completely dug, then for some time the plant will be working nicely without any repair and without any repair and maintenance. But after sometimes when the repair and maintenance is required, then the production rate will obviously be affected. And then further, uh, when this basically it is this is the area where till when we are doing the primary recovery. So after the primary recovery, after extracting the oil from the primary recovery methods, that suppose we have completely exhausted our primary recovery methods and now no more oil is getting extracted, is being able, we are not able to extract oil using this natural methods, then comes the secondary recovery method, and all the secondary recovery methods we can use, uh, and then due to which also then production rate will increase during while when we will use this secondary recovery. But as I told that most of the oil is recovered from the natural drive only. The secondary drive and tertiary drive is basically to recover the some amount of oil if it is remaining somewhere in the remotest area. So that's why the production rate is not as high as the primary recovery time. And after that, when the after using all this primary and secondary and tertiary recovery method, when completely the well is exhausted, then the well is abandoned. And economic profile, this was the production profile, and this is the economic profile. So basically, the economic profile, firstly, when well is drilled, then that is basically the investment period. So it is basically a curve between time, and here it is dollar. So when firstly we are providing the investment, so here we are providing the investment and drilling is going on. And as soon as this is the maximum exposure, and slowly when the plant comes into function, payback period starts and it reaches a maximum in when the maximum profit we are making. But this is the ideal case then where there is no maintenance and operation is required, but in real condition obviously some repair and maintenance is required. So this is basically the real curve, this is the ideal curve. And after the exhaustion of all the primary, secondary and tertiary recovery methods, the well is abandoned. Now coming on to the composition of the petroleum. So as so petroleum, it is not a uniform material. It is not that crude oil. It is never a single component thing. It consists of various hydrocarbons. Then hydrocarbons. Then non-hydrocarbon material is also there, consisting of sulfur, nitrogen, oxygen. Then some amount of metals are also there, mainly vanadium, nickel, iron, copper. So many different components are present into our petroleum. Okay. So the base, but mainly it consists of the hydrocarbon content, which can be as high as 90%, and it can also go low as 50%. Basically, the higher hydrocarbon content is in the light petroleum crude, and lower hydrocarbon content when the heavier spaltic crude is extracted. So basically, this is the this ultimate analysis which gives the elemental distribution of different of a crude oil. Basically we can see that carbon and hydrogen are present in the largest amount, and further small traces of sulfur, nitrogen, oxygen are present, and some traces of metal, which is basically nickel, vanadium, iron is present. So basically hydrocarbon consists of different hydro so different hydrocarbons are present. Mainly, it consists of paraffins, naphthenes, and aromatics. Olefins are uh, rarely present in the crude oil. So basically, paraffins it is 50 to 25%. Basically, C1 to C40 chain of paraffins are present, both straight chain and branch chain paraffins are present mainly, and then naphthalene are also present, which are the cyclic saturated compounds, which are about 50%, and aromatics, which are double bond cyclic compounds, are also present in our crude oil. And some non-hydrocarbon materials, non-hydrocarbon content is also present. Basically, the sulfur compounds are there, nitrogen compounds are there, oxygen compounds are there. Though these compounds are undesirable since they pose serious threat, means serious issues with the usage of the crude oil. Suppose this mean they cause serious issues like corrosion issues and then oxidation issues due to the presence of oxygen, and then all these issues are associated with these non-hydrocarbon part. So basically, this hydrocarbon part is most desirable in our crude oil. When evaluation of oil stocks is done in different factors are there are different factors which affect the oils. So the characterization factor of crude oil it is defined by the universal oil product UOP, and it is expressed as K equals to cube root of TB upon S. So here TB is the molar average boiling point. So basically, if there is a crude oil fraction, if suppose it consists of three components. So basically, how to calculate this TB, that molar average boiling point? It basically T1 x1, T2 x2, T3 x3 by x1 plus x2 plus x3. Sorry. So, sorry for this. I'll just explain it again. So, characterization factor it is basically defined by this formula, which is basically the cube root of TB, which is the molar average boiling point. So basically, it is the average boiling point depending on the how many moles of different components are present into our crude oil, and it is taken in degree Rankine, and S is the specific gravity at 60 degrees 60 by 60 degree by 60 degree Fahrenheit, or 15 degree by 15 degrees Celsius. So basically, this is a characteristic of a crude oil mixture. As I told, that crude oil is never single component thing. It consists of different components. So depending on what mole of different component is present into a crude oil, this characterization factor changes, and this characterization factor changes and tells us the quality of our crude oil. And the second one is the API gravity. API gravity of a crude oil is used to express the gravity or density of a crude oil. So basically, it is given by the formula 141.5 upon specific gravity of 60 by 60 degree Fahrenheit minus 131.5. So what is the 60 by 60 degree Fahrenheit? So specific gravity, as we know, it is the gravity of a targeted component upon the gravity of water. So basically, the water and oil that we are taking both should be at a mean at a same temperature. Then we can take it as the specific gravity. So why do we use API gravity in case of crude oil and not specific gravity? So it is basically because the specific gravity of two different cuts of crude oil, they are very close to each other. Suppose there are two cuts of a crude oil. Suppose cut A and cut B is there. Means suppose two components are present in a crude oil. As suppose this A and B component are present. So there are cases when there are cases in someone is trying to join. So there are cases when two cuts present into the crude oil, they have specific gravity very close to each other. Suppose this uh, uh, mm, this cut, if suppose this where is the- suppose this cut A has specific gravity of 0.49 and this B has 0.48. So it is very difficult to differentiate between these two cuts. But if we use API gravity in the case of A and B and we apply this zero point 0.4, this specific gravity in this formula and we calculate the API gravity, then it shows it shows a wider variation. It increases the scale. So it is matlab it is easier to differentiate and quality and determine the quality of the two different cuts of a crude oil. So another basis of crude oil, it is according to US Bureau of Mines, eight bases of crude oil are designated depending on the distillation characterization. So distillation, coming on to distillation is very important factor for distillation is a very important factor for the determination of the quality of a crude oil, quality of crude oil, and for the extraction of useful products from our crude oil. So, uh, here it is told that US Bureau of Mines, according to US Bureau of Mines, eight bases of crude oil are designated. So there are two different key fractions. Key fraction number one, it is basically the fraction of crude oil which boils between 482 to 527 degree Fahrenheit at atmospheric pressure. Whereas the key fraction two, it is the fraction of crude oil which boils between 527 to 572 degree Fahrenheit at 40 mm pressure in a standard Hampel distillation apparatus. So basically, this Hampel distillation apparatus. It is a standard distillation apparatus. So if you have a crude oil, and so to determine in which key fraction it comes under which key fraction. What we will do is we will heat that. We will take the crude oil and do the distillation in the Hampel distillation apparatus, and we will see that in which region it boils, and I mean in which temperature region it boils, so we can determine that the crude oil sample we have under which key fraction it comes, and using that we can determine. As we can see, these are the different cuts, different type of components which are present in the crude oil. Paraffins are present, naphthenes are present. These intermediates are basically the mixture of paraffins and naphthenes. Here intermediate, it is a mixture of naphthenes and paraffins. So different cuts of the crude oil, we can determine the key fraction, mean under which key fraction it comes, and using that we can determine its API gravity and UP as well. So now nature of crude oil in terms of another term which I told is that the presence of sulfur. Presence of sulfur is also very crucial, though it is not required, but sulfur is present in sometimes very large amount in crude oil, and which is also obviously degrades its quality. So, depending on the sulfur content, there are two variations of the crude oil. The first one is the sour crude. So, it is basically depending on the hydrogen sulfide content, which is the H2S content. So, when crude oil contains dissolved hydrogen sulfide in it, that is about 0.05 feet, feet of hydrogen sulfide in 100 gallons of crude oil, then it is called sour crude. And if this amount is lower, mean the presence of hydrogen sulfide is lower in 100 gallons of crude oil, uh, then it is called the sweet crude. Another another classification is the high sulfur crude. This portion, this sour and sweet crude, it is simply dependent on the H2S. But here we are including all the sulfur containing compounds, that is the disulfides, mercaptans, and thiophene. If it is present in the crude oil in sufficient amount, then it is the high sulfur crude. It is called the high sulfur crude. Now coming on to the vaporization characteristics of oil stocks. So there are basically few classifications, few types, few methods on how to determine, how to determine the vaporization characteristics of oil stock. The first one is the true boiling point. So what happens in this? It is a perfect fractionation method. So that is basically that uh, it is a basically an ideal method, you can say. Here complete separation of the different cuts of a crude oil happens. We can say that. But obviously ideal condition is never possible. So what happens in this true boiling point is, if suppose a crude oil consists of two components A and B, and suppose A is present 30% and B is present 70% in a crude oil. And if we heat, this curve is basically uh, uh, derived using distillation method. So it is a curve between percentage distilled versus temperature at which the different cuts are extracted. Basically, distillation is, what is distillation? We heat the crude oil and at different when suppose there are numerous components present in the crude oil. So if we heat it the suppose there is this component A which has the lowest boiling point. So to at first what will happen during heating, this component A will be extracted. Then after that, the component B, whose boiling point is more than A, it will be distracted. So it will be extracted. So that is basically distillation. It is the separation of different cuts of crude oil depending on their boiling point. So what happens here, that if we suppose increase the temperature and there comes a temperature, suppose TA is the boiling point of A cut and TB is the boiling point of B cut. So what happens when we increase the temperature and the boiling point of A comes, then A starts to extract. So A start to vaporize and we can extract A. Then what happens after the consumption of A completely, the temperature again start to rise, and when it reaches the boiling point of B, then B starts to come out. In, this is basically 30% of A when it is completely extracted. Then B starts to come out, and then completely the rest 70% of B comes out. But obviously, this is not the ideal condition. Ideal condition never happens. So what happens is, ideal condition never happens. So basically, in practically, what happens is when we increase the temperature and TA reaches A starts to come. But after some times, temperature again start to rise, and from here we can see that a mixture of A and B starts to escape. And moreover, after that, till it this mixture of A and B escapes till completely A is exhausted. Here, complete A is exhausted, and after that, only B is escaping. Okay, so this is what happens. So this TBP, which is the true boiling point, is the ideal condition, whereas the other method is the ASTM method, which is American Society for Testing and Material Distillation. ASTM D158 method, which is a non-fractionating method. Perfect fractionating means complete separation takes place, which is we are assuming complete separation takes place here, which is obviously not happening. But in ASTM, what happens? Complete separation is not taking place. Mixture of A and B, as I told here, mixture of A and B is somehow coming at some point of time. Mixture is is escaping. So in ASTM method is the similar thing, that there is we can see here, this is the TBP, true boiling point, where clear cut is shown at mean first one cut will be coming out, then after that only, after the exhaustion of the first cut, only second cut will be coming out. But in case of ASTM, we can see that the mixture is coming out at some point of time, mixture of two cuts is coming out. And the third one is the equilibrium flash vaporization, which is also not a perfect fractionation method. It is also a non-fractionating method. In this, what happens is when we heat a crude oil, what happens? Heat different cuts. In this method, what we simply do is we heat the crude oil at different temperatures and flash them at a constant lower pressure. And after that flashing, we get suppose suppose there are two cuts present, A and B. We heat it at TB, mean that is the first boiling TA. We heat it at a complete crude oil at boiling point of A, and then we flash it at lower pressure, so only A will come out. Then we increase the temperature to TB, and then we heat it at TB, and then flash it at pressure, and then B will come out. So basically, here we are trying to mean confirm that only a single cut is coming out at a single time. So this is the equilibrium flash vaporization method. Now, fourth one is the mid percent curve. So basically, the petroleum property varies throughout the fraction. As I told that there are different fractions present in the petroleum, so it obviously its property will also change. Mean depending on different fractions, its property will also change as we gradually go down from one compound to another. So the rate of change of physical property of petroleum fraction drop by drop is represented by mid percent curve. So what happens if suppose there is a petroleum engineer, it have a query to determine the physical property of a commercial width. Suppose he has got a commercial width of a petroleum fraction. He has got a petroleum fraction and he want to determine the physical property. So what will happen? It is seen in some of the cases that whenever we distill the petroleum fraction, the difference in the physical properties of difference in the physical property of one drop of petroleum fraction is with the preceding drop and with the succeeding drop, the difference in the properties is very less. Suppose you are heating a petroleum fraction, and then one drop is that condensed at this point, another drop is condensed at this point, and another drop is the third drop is condensed at this point. So we can say that the physical property of this droplet and in comparison to this and this is very less. I mean the difference in the physical property is very less. Okay, if suppose you can see that you can say that a petroleum fraction is heating at 40 degree, then another fraction is heating at 41 degree, and mean boiling at 41 degree, and another fraction, then third fraction is boiling at 42 degree. So we can see that the property of crude oil boiling at 41 is in comparison to boiling at 40 and 42 is not very different. I mean there is not very huge difference when temperature is not very different. So for a very short range, for a very short range of fraction, the physical property that range is lying exactly in the. In that case, what we do in this case, we can say that the physical property of this middle point is this droplet is in exactly in the middle point of this. Mean this complete this area, this line, the property of this is in the exact middle. As we can see, for a short range of fraction, the physical property of that range is lying exactly at the middle point of. Let's see in this diagram. It is a curve of percentage distilled versus specific gravity. So we can see that this is divided into 19 portions. The first 18 are divided in 5 segments, and the last one is in the 10th segment. So, depending on the specific gravity of the different petroleum cuts, We can see these gasoline, kerosene, gas oil, then reduced crude. Depending on these different cuts, depending on the specific gravity of these different cuts, if we take suppose this fraction into account, then to determine the property of this specific gravity, suppose we need the specific gravity that properties of the crude oil of specific gravity, suppose 0.79 or somewhat it is 0.78, 0.79. Then to determine its properties, we can draw a line here, and this midpoint, this we can say that the property, the property of this point lies, of this point lies in, mean we can take the average of these two, and for the property of this point, we have the values for these 2 points, but for the properties of this point, we can take a average of these 2 points. This mid percent cannot be used for, this mid percent curve method is used for the properties basically which are additive in nature. So some of the properties of the crude oil are additive and some are non-additive. So the additive properties, which are these, can be determined using this mid percent method, but which are not additive in nature, they cannot be determined using the mid percent method. So for the properties which are not additive in nature, yield curves are drawn. It is basically it is determined experimentally by blending different fractions together and plotting the values so obtained. So viscosity yield curve, it is basically the plot of viscosity of residual product versus the percentage of residue. Suppose this is the residue yield curve and this is the distillate yield curve. When we distill a crude oil, we get two fractions. One is the distillate and one is the residue. If we mix the residue and then we plot the viscosity of the residue product versus the percentage of residue, then we can then we can get this viscosity yield curve. And if we blend different distillate together and plot a curve of temperature versus the distillate percentage of distilled percentage distilled, then we get the flash yield curve. Okay, so for the theory portion, we are done for today, and we have some assignment questions. So it would be good if you guys also participate in telling me the answers. So coming on to the first assignment question, crude petroleum is formed from, the four options are here. Anyone from the student side can give me the answer? Hello?
Ma'am, option A.
Okay. Yes, as I have told that crude petroleum is formed by the dead organisms when they are buried, and due to the pressure, it converts into oily material. So yes, the first answer is correct, which is the dead animals and organisms buried in the mud for millions of years. Just a second, guys. Just give me a minute. Just a minute. I'll just bring water. Okay. So the second question is fluid distribution in the reservoir rock is as follows. Anyone from the students?
Ma'am, option B.
Okay. So option B is correct. Someone is trying to join now or what? Okay. So yes, the option B is correct as I told. That the distribution of crude oil in a reservoir rock, it takes place depending on its density. So the lightest being the gas, it stores in the above upper zone, and then oil and water being the densest, it stores in the bottom zones. So the option B is correct. The third question is the concept of common depth point in seismic data logging for drilling is that anyone?
Option A.
Yes, it is the as I told that CDP is basically it generates multiplicity of data. It provides numerous data for us to confirm that which location which location at what location presence of oil reserves can be there. So the answer is it generates multiplicity of data from a particular subsurface location. Coming on to the fourth question, which is the primary function of drilling mud is. So anyone? Hello.
Ma'am, option A.
Yes, option A is correct, but there is also another option. So the first one is to lubricate the drill bit, as I told, and also to control the subsurface pressure. So it is basically the drilling mud is introduced into our well so that heat generated during the cutting by the drilling bit, it gets to cool and to lubricate the drill bit. Moreover, it is also there to control the subsurface pressure. Question 5. Which one of is not a component of drilling rig?
Option D.
Yes,
Option
it
D.
is correct. Option D. Since, as I told you, it basically consists of a power plant, then a rotary machinery and hoisting, then drill column, mud circulation systems, but there was no seismograph. So answer is seismograph. Sixth question, which statement is not correct? Uh, any one of you can tell?
Ma'am, option A.
Yes, you are right. It is not an important it is an important utility to remove the debris from the well. Basically, the drilling that sand and rock chunks out of the well. It is not used for the removal of water. Someone is trying to join. Question number 7. The principle of recovering oil from the reservoir depends on.
Ma'am, option A.
It is correct. It depends on the
Op-
pressure. It depends on the pressure difference of reservoir and well. Moreover, other requirements are that porosity and permeability of reservoir rock, not the number of pores. And then the area occupied by the reservoir rock, it is not an issue. And depth of the reservoir rock is also not an issue. Question number 8. Following types of compounds is not a component of crude petroleum, which is not a component of crude petroleum.
Option B. Option
Yes,
B.
it is correct. Basically, olefins are rarely present. As I told here on before in the slide also, olefins are rarely present in the crude oil. It is the reason. Okay, the question 9 is the reason for using API gravity instead of specific gravity for petroleum oil is.
Option A.
Yes, it is correct. As I told, it is basically to broaden the difference between the gravities so that we can easily differentiate between two crude oil cuts. Since specific gravity is here in the denominator, so even if the difference between the specific gravity is very less, after calculating the API gravity, you will get a broader scale. Coming on to the 10th question, which one of the following distillation gives a theoretically perfect fractionation?
Option A.
Yes, it is correct. It is basically the total, sorry, sorry. It's too boiling. The option A is correct, which is the true boiling point. As I told, it is a perfect fractionation method, though it is not, practically possible. 11th question is the reservoir rock should possess the property.
Ma'am, option A.
Yes, it is correct. Fluid holding and fluid transmitting capacity. Basically, fluid holding, it is the porosity, and fluid transmitting, it is the permeability. So, both the properties are required for a good reservoir rock. Drilling bit serves the purpose of,
Ma'am,
Duplicate
option
the
D.
drilling system. Option A.
sorry, drilling bit it is. The option D is correct, which is it is not drilling. It is not drilling mud. All the above options are for drilling mud. It is for drilling bit is used for cutting the rocks and soil for drilling. You got confused in drilling mud. Okay, all these options for lubricating the drilling stem and storing the holding the drilling stem and absorbing heat which is released during the cutting. It is done by drilling mud. Got it? Which of them is not a reservoir rock?
Ma'am, option D.
Yes, it is correct. As I told in the first slide, different examples were the limestone, dolomite, and sandstone. Chalk is not a kind of reservoir rock. One numerical is here. The API gravity of natural gasoline and kerosene are 60 and 50. Determine the difference in their specific gravity. You guys solve and tell me the answer. API gravity, I should write the formula. It is basically 141.5 upon specific gravity at 60 by 60 Fahrenheit minus 131.5. So specific gravity will be anyone? You guys are doing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, solve it and tell me the answer.
Ma'am, is it option D?
Okay, now let me solve and tell you. Basically, it is 131.5 upon 3. What is the specific gravity for natural gasoline coming?
0.738, ma'am.
Okay. And for kerosene?
0.77.
Okay. So we just have to take the difference in both of them. And I guess answer you are telling is correct. Let me see. Answer D is correct, which is 0.041. Okay. Okay. What is the timing? So we are done for today's session. I will upload this PPT for your reference. You guys have the link. You guys will get the link for the same. So I will upload this presentation for your reference. For the questions, you can follow them afterwards. In next time, please try to join on time. I saw today many people were joining even after 1 hour. Any issues? We can end the class if there are no issues.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm ending the class now.